Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside the Doomsday Project, Episode 2, The Battle for the Balkans. This is a game designed by Adam Starkweather and is published by Compass Games. Well, the Doomsday Project Episode 1, Battle for Germany, has already been out. There's even a Learn to Play video on it on the channel. This is the second in the series. This is part of the Operational Scale System, the OSS system from Compass. And all of these are going to join together to create one story that it's going to tell of the hypothetical World War III that this is portraying. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game's all about. The Doomsday Project is a series of interlocking games covering the World War that never was. The war would be fought throughout the globe, and this project will cover many of those campaigns. Episode 1 was on the battle for Germany. Episode 2, the battle for the Balkans, covers the vital southern flank, spanning from the northern parts of Italy all the way south to the Mediterranean. The Soviet Union, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, and fragile Yugoslavia would attack the NATO forces of Italy, Greece, and Turkey. Spain stood ready to assist, and vulnerable Austria and even little Albania were likely to be swept up in the grand plan for Soviet domination of the world. As will happen with each additional episode of the Doomsday Project, new rules will be added to cover another aspect of this struggle. In Episode 2, political rules have been added that significantly increase the political drama that would have occurred behind the scenes. The Doomsday Project covers this massive area at 12 kilometers per hex, and the divisions of the Warsaw Pact arrayed against the brigades of NATO. This game uses the Operational Scale System, using new design concepts and mechanisms to present a modern look at this great war that thankfully never happened. Owners of the first game are provided rules to join the first two episodes together in a grand campaign for the future of Central and Southern Europe. You can see an example of the map and the counters here on the back of the box. And for components, we get 4 22 by 34 inch maps, one 11 by 17 inch map, one 8.5 by 11 map, 5 counter sheets, one rule book, one scenario book, 7 charts and tables, 2 10-sided dice, and 2 6-sided dice. It is rated as medium to high complexity. Time scale is 1 turn equals 1 day. Map scale is 12 kilometers per hex. Unit scale divisions brigades. It is for 1 to 4 players. The suitability for solitaire is high. Average playtime is between 2 and 40 hours, and it is recommended for ages 14 and up. So let's take a look inside and see what we get. All right, first thing we got is a little sheet of errata and clarifications, all for the scenario book. Looks like there's 5 little items. Our baggies, our dice sealed for freshness, the rule book, scenario book, player aid cards, counter sheet, all shrink wrapped, keep all the counters in, and then our maps. So let's set up the maps and take a closer look at the game. And here's a look at the maps that come with the game. We're going to look at them all individually. I'm not going to try to lay them out for you to see how everything would be if you're going to play the theater itself. I don't have the focal length for it, so we'll just concentrate on individual maps. This one we start off, Yugoslavia is at the center, Croatia to the left, Romania to the right, Serbia between. And this is going to go down into Greece, and there's going to be another map that's going to connect them right down here. And here is the Greece map I was just talking about. You have Montenegro at the top left, and that's where that small map is going to join. This will be the bridge between those two maps. This one right here is going to go up at the top left, and it's going to join the two maps. You have Albania, Macedonia, Bulgaria, and then of course Greece down here. The Aegean Sea is the major sea body, as well as the Adriatic on the far left-hand side. Then we'll move east to Italy and Slovenia. And one other map that I did not mention before, which I should have when I was showing you Greece, is the Turkey map. And this is going to extend the Greece map just a little bit off to the right. So you can see all these maps are going to go together kind of like puzzle pieces, and you're going to need quite a bit of table space. That's why I'm showing them to you individually, because it's easier to see a bit at a time rather than try to get the whole picture all at once. Then we finish out the map set by moving north into Czechoslovakia, Austria, and Hungary. Next, we'll take a look at the player aids that come with the game. First up is the general game display. At the top right, we have the turn track. Below that, we have the basic rules reference. This is going to give you the combat declaration cost for meeting engagement, hasty attack, prepared attack, and deliberate attack. Below that, you have the combat size modifier table and some notes on the right-hand side, the combat chit breakdown so you can understand everything on the combat chits. Below that, we have the combat DRM, support and victory point track, and then the weather track and refugees on the left-hand side. Then we have the Warsaw Pact air display. This is where you're going to keep track of all of your airfields, aircraft, the different missions they're on, as well as your anti-aircraft capabilities. Then we have the same for the NATO air display. Next, we have the NATO player aid. This is going to give you tracks for equipment and support values, as well as replacements and infrastructure supply. Then we have boxes also for replacements and your available breakdown battalions. And we have the same for the Warsaw Pact. Then we have the military and political leader tracks. This is where you're going to be keeping track of the different style leaders that you have from pensive all the way up to reckless. And then the same for the political leaders, where they're going to be neutral in the center, leaning pact, at war against NATO, or leaning towards NATO, or at war against the pact. And lastly, we have the terrain effects chart, which gives a listing of all the different types of terrain, movement cost to deploy, defensive value to deploy, unrestricted terrain table, and then the special notes on the right-hand side. And on the back, we have the restricted terrain table and the hex side terrain table. Now we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game. Remember, these are shrink wrapped for a reason. Handle with care when you take that shrink wrap off. Otherwise, you have a good chance that your counters will just fall right out, and you don't want to do that unless you're on top of a table. So be careful of that. And we have mixed units throughout these counter sheets. Soviet Union, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, and Italy at the top right. And we have Spain, Greece, Turkey, Albania, and Austria at the bottom right. Then we have Yugoslavian and Austrian forces, as well as a mix of administrative counters. And on the last two sheets, we have the remainder of the administrative counters for use in the game. Next, we'll take a look at the rules. This is a 44-page full-color rulebook. On the inside of the front cover, we have the table of contents breaking down all the sections and the individual rules, as well as corresponding page number. Then we get into the introduction. And remember, I was telling you about the map layout. Well, here is going to give you a detailed breakdown on how to set up the maps for the scenarios, as well as for the overall campaign. Charts and tables explain to you the counters. There's a breakdown here of the counter legend, so you understand all aspects of the counters. Then we have the game setup, general concepts, sides, forces, conditions of forces, movement, and stacking, and then lines of communication. Zones of control, infrastructure and supply, control of hexes, and random events. Then we get to weather and the turn structure. Then we have the detailed sequence of play, breaking down all the steps in the sequence of play for you to follow along with. Victory is explained to you, then the strategic phase is broken down, check weather, check communications, place arriving reinforcements, area allocation phase, resolve all SSM attacks, supply and infrastructure phase, strategic air mission resolution. Then we have the Warsaw Pact activation phase and the NATO activation phase. And we have the activation sequence broken down for you. Reserve movement segment, bonus movement segment. Then we have the combat segment there. I'll explain to you how to use your combat chits, artillery support, air-to-ground support, helicopter support, combat die rolls, and random events. How to apply your modifiers, check for unit quality, taking losses, retreating units, paying replacement points. After combat loss segment, check stacking segment, headquarters movement and refresh segment, bivouac, night battles, and then the end phase. Eliminate friendly units phase, victory check phase, and the victory check segment, and the politics phase. And then, of course, the time phase, which is where you advance the turn marker. Then we have the infrastructure and supply phase, spending your supply points, supply costs, adjusting the supply tracks. Then the air game, air allocation phase, Air Force's commitment phase, the strategic air resolution phase, infrastructure strikes, airfield strikes, nuclear strikes, reforger missions, tactical mission resolution, bounce box missions, resolving bounce box air-to-air combat, interdiction missions, intercepting an interdiction mission, intercepting a ground support mission, reconnaissance missions, and then SAM fire at the bottom right. Morale, disrupted units, routed units, low morale, headquarters and cadres, markers, the Cup of Snafu markers. Love that name, the Cup of Snafu. And the Cup of Snafu will give you things like low fuel, no fuel, low ammo, no ammo, radio out, key leader casualties, poor leaders, great leaders, loss, surprise, desertion, initiative. All these things will just be like the friction that you'll have to deal with in combat. Loss markers, air game markers, status markers, all your markers explained to you, your combat markers, special units, then reinforcements and replacements, additional support assets. Then we get into the politics stuff that is going to be interesting to see how that changes things up. Weapons of mass destruction, chemical and nuclear weapons. And then we have the game credits at the back. And then here is the breakdown of how the maps will look all together. This gives you the planning map when playing the full campaign. Then on the back, we have the expanded sequence of play. And lastly, we have the scenario book. This is a 28-page full-color book. Inside of the front cover, we have the table of contents at the top, which is going to list out all of the 6 scenarios as well as the example of play. Start off with Scenario 1, Austria Stands Alone. Gives you an introduction, preparation for play, setting up for play, all your OB for all your units, reinforcements, and then your special rules and victory conditions. All the scenarios are going to be laid out the same way. Then we have Scenario 2, Hatred, and it's going to give you also the maps that you'll be using for each of the scenarios. So you see that you're not going to use the entire map sections. You'll be using partials. You won't always be using the full map. Belle Peace. Scenario 4, To the Land of Four Seasons. Lots of reinforcements on this. Scenario 5, The Battle for the Balkans. This is a whole smash right here. You're going to be using all of your maps. And then Scenario 6, The Battle for Europe. Gets even bigger now. So going to be really a big battle there. Example play starts on page 25. Illustrated is going to give you a breakdown following along each of the steps with illustrated examples. And that will finish out on the back of the scenario book. And that is a look at everything you get inside of the Doomsday Project, Episode 2, The Battle for the Balkans. This is a game designed by Adam Starkweather and is published by Compass Games. Well, it's great to see this series continuing on now with Episode 2, Episode 3 in the works already. So it's going to make for a compelling story here with the OSS system as it continues to grow and mature. And the rules continue to be refined with each release and then expanded with new rules. So it's great to see that evolution taking place. And I love it because it's modern hypothetical World War III, which I'm a huge fan of, as everybody knows. So it's great to have this as another option. And it's just amazing to see how many of these hypothetical World War III games there are out there. And I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but for those of us who are enjoying it, it's just fantastic to see different takes on the war that never was, thankfully. But beautiful production, as always, from Compass. I just love everything that goes with this game. The maps are beautiful, the player aids are plentiful, the counter sheets are fantastic, and then you have all your information in the rules and the scenario books. So just another one to look forward to putting on the table and fighting out a hypothetical World War III. And the game is available now, so if you missed out on the pre-order, you can place an order now from the Compass website. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.